Dun, 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 dun,
Da-da-da,
dun, dun, dun.
da-da-da-da.
Welcome under the asylum.
Welcome. Good to see everybody out there in YouTube land. My name is Timothy Connolly, joined by,
Rick Birmingham.
that's right, the one and only. Welcome to Under the Asylum. And today we're going to start things off by getting our classic music takedown underway. And today we're going to be taking down Eruption by Van Halen. Rick
Hmm.
Birmingham, what are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts on it when this came out onto the scene back in the day, nobody had really, there was very limited rock and roll musicians putting a guitar solo on a record. Very few. And if they did, they weren't like guitar solos like um D that's on Blizzard of Oz, you know.
Yeah,
It's like a classical musical piece. It's not a guitar solo.
right.
Eruption is a guitar solo.
Damn right.
Yeah.
Have you ever attempted to play Eruption?
Yes, I learned Eruption how to play it when I was a young lad in my I don't know, 17 maybe.
Okay, wow.
I'm
What's
not
the
sure I could do it anymore the same way, but
well, it's
got my own twist on it now, you know?
that's all right. That's cool.
Yeah.
What is it about that song that you really like the most?
Um, the way the guitar sounds,
You mean like the tone?
the tone of it. Yeah.
What do you think Eddie was doing to get that kind of a tone?
He has a phaser pedal that's going very, very slowly. Very, very slowly. So,
Define very slowly for those of us out here in the audience
like,
who might not know.
like, um, normally when people hear like the sound of a phaser, it's like wow, wow. But his was set really slow so that when he's playing that, it goes
I see what you mean.
like, yeah, makes it really interesting because he might just, you could just play the same thing and it'll change, you know. Not that he's playing the same thing,
What
but
was that guitar that he used when he recorded that song?
hmm,
Was that a Fender?
I don't know what he recorded that with off the top of my head. He had a whole bunch of different guitars kicking around back then.
Yeah, that's
Um,
true. It might have even been one that he built himself.
it could have been anything. I don't think he was just sort of starting to do that thing really around then. Van Halen 1, or was that on 2?
I believe it was Van Halen 1.
It is 1. Sorry. Yeah. Um, I don't. I think he was just kind of starting to do that. He might have hooked up with Kramer already, but I'm not sure. But I mean, there's pictures of him recording Van Halen 1. There's like all kinds of guitars around. You know, it's not just his like Kramer, you know, with the one guitar pickup and the whammy bar
Mhm.
that didn't have a tone knob, just had a volume knob. He did a bunch of things with that, but that was really more for his own kicks. And he used it on tour, but I don't really think he used that guitar in the studio, maybe. It's hard to say.
Well, what a song, what a guitar, and what a guitar player. And I know that there's so much to say about that particular song. That's great, and I know it's inspired tons of guitar players who came after him. Just that one song alone. I mean, not even, talking about all of the ways Eddie inspired guitar players, of which there were certainly many. But
Yeah.
rest in peace, Eddie. We love you. We miss you. And of course, we'll continue to be listening to you. And well, Rick, look at this. We're getting mail already. Well, this
Oh yeah.
shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody though, because
Oh,
you know, we've seen word get out that Rick and I were going to be doing this podcast together, and we started getting some mail in from our fans who want us to answer some of their letters here on the episode. And let's just take one of these and see what you think. This one comes from Raul Verona of Warm Springs, Oregon, and Raul writes,
hmm.
"Hi Rick, hi Tim. Why did Ibanez add a low B string to make their 5-string bass?" Well, that's an interesting question, Raul. Prior to Ibanez having a 5-string bass, I don't think that I was personally aware of any other bass manufacturer making 5-string basses. Rick, were you aware of that at all?
Not any of the big companies, no.
No, right?
Right.
Why do you suppose Ibanez thought it was necessary to create 5-string bass and of course mass market it like they would any other product?
Well, there were a couple of well-known players that had custom-made five-string basses, and I don't know who, but I'm sure that there was somebody who was playing Ibanez basses, um, and was endorsed by Ibanez, was like, "Hey, I want a five-string bass." Um,
That
and
could be.
that's I'm gonna say that's probably most likely like someone like Billy Sheehan, although I don't think he played Ibanez. He might have played Kramer basses or something, but that's probably why Ibanez started making five-string basses. As far as the low B goes, it's bass, so you want lower notes, don't you?
Of course you do.
Right.
Of course you do. Well,
Yeah.
Raul, I hope that answers your question. I thank you very much for writing in.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of questions, Rick,
Yeah.
it's time for questions from beyond.
Oh man, I don't know if I'm ready. Okay.
I know you're ready, and you know you're ready. Come on now.
I don't know if you're ready either.
Oh, I'm not ready,
Let
but
me
here we go.
get
All
my
right.
glasses ready here. Okay.
Okay. Now, for all of you out there in YouTube land checking this out for your first time, Questions from Beyond is a segment where Rick and I ask each other questions. And so now here we go.
You
First
want to
question I
take
have for you, Rick,
yeah.
is it's been more than 50 years now since NASA put men on the moon, as far as
Yeah.
we know. And now all of a sudden, there's a lot of talk about this new Artemis mission to put people back on the moon again. Americans, of course.
They've
And
already selected some of the astronauts.
they selected the first crew, and there's going to be the first woman to walk on the moon, and there's going to be the first person of color to walk on the moon, all of which is cool. And there's also going to be a ton of robots that are going to be set out onto the surface to do all kinds of research and what have you that NASA didn't have the technology for way back when. So
Uh-huh.
my question for you here, my friend, is um, why is it so important that we go back to the moon? Can you please explain this for us?
Why is it so important? Um, well, in my opinion, no matter no matter what any way you slice it, the future is an infinite timeline, right? So if we as the human race ever want to become part of the Galactic Federation, then we're going to have to start with baby steps, and might as well take them when you can, you know. If we're ever going to mine the asteroid belt, and if we're ever going to siphon the helium out of the atmosphere of Jupiter, if we're ever going to build an underwater city on Europa, if we're ever going to have sex in outer space, then we've got to get there, right?
Well, yes, it all starts with one small step.
Yeah.
Now, that's a very good answer to that question. Thank you. Now, I take it you've got a question for me.
I do. Let me ask you, what's the coolest looking guitar you've ever seen?
The coolest looking guitar that I've ever seen
Mm-hmm.
was a Tobacco Sunburst Gibson Les Paul played by Ace Frehley of Kiss. And not only did he play it live in concert, but he shot fireworks out of the damn thing.
Oh yeah.
That'll do it.
Were you at that show?
No, I was not, but
Oh.
I saw film footage of the show,
Oh yeah.
and believe me, this does not diminish the experience in any way.
No.
I was young and impressionable, and that has stayed with me forever. In fact, Ace used to do this thing where he would have fireworks go off on his guitar that would spin around and around in a circle. It would be a
Yeah.
firework spinning around. The dude was just amazing at what he would put himself at risk with in terms of pyrotechnics. So
Yeah.
that's got to be the wildest guitar I've ever seen. I'm sure he's burned a few guitars right down to the ground doing that stuff too, by the way.
Wow.
Well, there's your answer. Cool question.
That's great
Very
answer.
cool question. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, it just so happens that I have another question for you.
Okay.
All right. My next question for you is, aside from my sunglasses, what are the best sunglasses?
What are the best sunglasses?
Yeah, what sunglasses are the best sunglasses?
Man. Um, for me,
Well, you've had some cool sunglasses over the years.
yeah, I have some now even.
All right. Well, you got to pick one. What's the best?
The best sunglasses are um lightly brown tinted, polarized bifocals in a shape reminiscent of Ray-Bans.
Interesting. Now, when you say bifocals, you're talking about prescription sunglasses?
No, I'm just talking about bifocals.
Okay.
Yeah, because past 2 feet, I don't need glasses. I only need glasses here. So,
Okay, you're in good shape then. You're fine.
oh yeah, yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good answer. I'm glad I got to finally ask you that question. I've been wanting to ask you that for years.
Have you? Oh, well,
Well, now let's see. You've probably got another question for me.
I may have at least one question for you. I would like to know your thoughts and feelings on the 4-day work week as a um societal norm.
Oh, well, it's 4 days too long. I hope you like my answer. It just so happens I have another question for you.
Yes.
Where have all the Marshall stacks gone? I never see them at live shows around anymore. And I don't mean live shows that I'm going to see at 17,000 seat
Well,
amphitheaters. I'm just talking about,
yeah. Well, I'll tell you where they have gone is that finally the due to the advent of the internet and um the prolification of um the YouTube and like things like people trying to mix their own music,
yeah,
it's finally gotten out there to the guitarists in their thick heads that they really don't need an amplifier louder than 40 watts ever. Like ever.
it took them this long to finally figure that out, huh?
It did, yep. And that a Marshall stack is those were intended to be used without a sound system, you
I
know?
see. I see.
Like you would go to the concert and there wouldn't be a microphone in front of the guitar amp. The guitar amp was just fucking loud.
there probably wouldn't even be a stage monitor for the guitar player at that point. It would just be a loud Marshall stack, right?
Right. Yeah. Like, yeah, they're a full Marshall stack with 100-watt head is supposed to be loud enough to for Madison Square Garden.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. So where have they all gone? They've just gone to that great Marshall stack graveyard in the sky?
I mean, there are a bunch of hoarders, a lot of older people of that certain age from the era where the Marshall stack was the ideal are still sort of hung on to them. They've become the collectors of like the Les Pauls and the guitars and things.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's still plenty of metal guys that use Marshall stacks, but if you try to bring a Marshall stack into the club here, we're just like, no. We just say no. Just, no, you can't bring that in here.
No shirts, no shoes, no stacks, no service.
Yeah. I mean, I would, yeah.
Well, all right. Well, that's a good answer to that question. Thanks for answering. I always wondered where they all went. Never seen them
Hmm.
around anymore.
Yeah.
And cool. Well, unless you have another question for me,
I do. I have a wonderful question for you as well. I'm
shoot.
very curious. I know you're out more in like the desert and stuff like that. So and like food is a different experience over there, I think, than where I am right now. And I'm just wondering what's your favorite, whether you make it yourself or not, what's your favorite like super cheap, the cheapest meal that you have
The cheapest meal that I would have from
that you
around here
love that you love?
that I love. Oh, well,
Yes, like peanut butter and jelly sandwich is really
sure,
cheap,
sure. No,
you know.
yeah, that is cheap.
Yeah.
That is cheap. I'm going to go a little step up above that, but it still qualifies as cheap.
Yeah.
There's a pizza place nearby called Bistro Pizza that just so happens to make phenomenal calzones. And I mean phenomenal. They make it from scratch right there when you walk in. And so it's not like they're giving you something that's going to be reheated because it's been sitting out on a
Mhm.
display for a little while. Uh,
Uh,
this is the good stuff. And I've heard people say, "Oh, you're going to leave New York. You're never going to get better pizza anywhere else." And I say, "Oh yeah, here, hold my iced tea."
the
Because
pizza in New York has gotten really like expensive all of a sudden.
oh, has it?
Oh yeah, all the pizza places. I'm convinced that there's a secret pizza place cartel because every pizza place owner I know has previously owned a pizza place. And the pizza place here in town gets bought every 5, 6 years. They redo the place, put out really good pizza for like 2 years, maybe,
Right,
and make really shitty pizza for like 3 years, sell the place, and just like move to a new pizza place. Like, so they like build a clientele, put a little bit of money in the ingredients, and then buy the shittiest ingredients, and they
right,
have the clientele make
right,
as much bank on overhead as they can,
right.
and uh and then sell the business, and then like it moves on to the next guy in the pizza place line, the lineage.
It wouldn't surprise me if that was the case. I mean, on the surface, it doesn't really sound like a very sustainable business model. But the truth is, if you're just going to keep playing that game,
Yeah,
there's no way to lose really, because number one, everybody
until
loves
it just
pizza.
ends.
I don't care who you are, everybody loves pizza. And
Right.
and number two, if you can get away with that sort of thing as the entrepreneur, then why the hell not do it?
Mm. Yeah, they all did it together at the same time. Two pies with toppings is like $45.
No, it's not.
It is, dude. Yes, I'm not
Are you
kidding.
serious?
I'm
Oh
totally serious.
man.
Yeah, yeah.
That's just criminal.
It is criminal. That's what I mean. How long can you keep that up until the people decide they don't like pizza anymore? I don't
Well,
know.
that raises another question. Now, what about the chain pizza places like Pizza Hut and Little Caesars and Papa John's? Are those places still doing okay or not really?
I'm not really doing great. I don't think. Domino's is kind of doing okay, but I'm in New York, so people like Pizza Hut barely survives in New York. Barely. Domino's like only hangs on here and there, but there aren't a whole lot of Domino's pizzas in New York because,
I got you. Well, to answer your question, my friend,
Yeah.
I like the calzones that I get at Bistro Pizza. What can I say?
What can you say?
What
All
can I
right.
say? And
Uh,
speaking of
yeah.
calzones, just a quick shout out to our program director here at Under the Asylum. His name
Yep.
is Sonny Calzone. For all of those out there who are listening and watching, if you want to send us in your letters, please send them to sunnycalzone@gmail.com. And
Yep.
just remember to have Under the Asylum in the subject line of your email. And then, of course, let us have your questions, and we'll be sure to
Yeah.
get them on future.
Speaking of which, a question came in directly to you. Says, "Hey guys, I wanted to ask Tim here a question. When Joe Satriani joined Joe Walsh and Prince on stage, where were you that afternoon? Do you remember?"
That afternoon, I was with Rick Birmingham, and we were planning global domination on board our tour bus while it was getting a flat fixed in Boise.
Was it Boise?
Yes, it was. I hope that answers your question, my friend.
Yeah. That's from Marcus Swede in Manhattan in Illinois, by the way. Thanks, Marcus, for writing
Thank you,
into it.
Marcus. I'm sure everybody was very curious about the answer to that question. And I remember it just like it was yesterday, Rick. You and I
Yeah.
were at the side of the road. We had nothing else to do, waiting for the flat tire to get fixed. So we started discussing what else? Global domination, right?
Well, it was a pretty common topic at the time.
It was. Do you
Yeah.
remember what our big plan was for global domination? I do.
You do.
I do. I just wonder if you remember it as I
I don't remember step one.
Oh, you forgot step one, did you?
Yeah. Yes, I have.
Oh, well, I guess I have to remind you. It involves recycling plants. Does that jog your memory now?
No, it's not coming to me.
No? All right. Well, maybe step two will help jog your memory.
Yeah.
Showgirls and stilt walkers were involved.
Showgirls and stilt workers and recycling plants.
Stilt walkers.
Stilt walkers. Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Right. So like a circus parade, you mean?
Sort of. Yeah, you're getting warm. So that's step one and step two. We combined the stilt walkers together with the showgirls into one step. So the first step was going to be recycling plants, and then the second step was going to be showgirls and stilt walkers.
Okay.
Now,
Geez,
do
I
you
don't
remember what our plan for global domination was?
don't. It's still not really. What was step three?
Step three involved cauliflower.
No, cauliflower. Well, cauliflower is relatively easy to grow. Were we gonna yeah, it's not connecting for me. I can't really tell.
You still can't connect the dots?
Can't connect the dots.
Well, maybe it's better that way
Yeah, I think so.
because our as much as our viewers and listeners love our show, they don't necessarily need to know every little thing about our plans for global domination anyway.
No, no, no. What's our timing look like? I know that another show is supposed to come into the studio over there.
Well, we have time for one more segment, so why don't we roll on into great albums?
Great albums. All right.
Take it away, Rick.
Well, this is really me asking you what your thoughts and feelings are about the leaked recordings from that Britney Spears Brazilian jazz record she was working on like 10 years ago with some
Uh-huh.
of the guys from Fish, you know,
Uh-huh. I remember.
and yep, and a couple of the like um less poppy tracks were sort of leaked.
Uh-huh.
The backlash was like very strange.
I know. I remember it well. And I knew that that was going to happen too after it got leaked.
Yeah,
So you want to know my thoughts on all that stuff?
yeah.
All right. Well,
What did,
the truth
what
can
went
now be
wrong?
known.
What
I
went wrong?
I was the one who leaked that music.
Oh,
And I know exactly what was going to happen after I leaked it. None of
yeah.
it surprised me. Now, I think it surprised a lot of other folks. The biggest surprise was probably the fact that it got leaked in the first place. And the second biggest surprise was the direction that that this music by Britney Spears was going to be heading in all of a sudden. Without warning, all of a sudden, here comes Brazilian jazz with the guys from Fish, including some, as Rick said, some rather less than poppy music. And we all knew that that this was going to happen in the wake of the leaking. And but I didn't mind.
So
Sometimes
you did it for the good of us all, is what
I
you're saying.
I did it for the LOLZ,
Oh,
and
I
believe
thought
me,
you
I
were
got
trying to
plenty of
protect
those.
us. You were trying to protect us from like, the eventualities that could have happened there if it was allowed to come to completion. Maybe,
Well, not in so many words, but yes, I did have the greater good
yeah.
at the forefront of my conscience at the time that this decision was made. And of course, you know what they say, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And certainly in my case, the needs of the one, because really all I needed was the LOLZ, and I did get that. But
Well, yeah. And really it was becoming really evident that Page was not happy with how it was all going. He's like, I'm playing the piano like this, and everyone else is not
yeah,
on the same
it was a mess. And
page, as
we
it
can't
were.
have that. We can't
No,
have that in this industry.
no.
The music industry, as wonderful and as diverse as it is, when you have an artist like Britney Spears going in a direction like this, that's terrible. It's not her fault, though.
It's
Her fault.
catastrophic.
And no, it's not her fault. It's the production company, it's the producers, and it's the labels, and to a certain
Have
extent,
you have you heard any of the new work that Sturgill Simpson has done?
thank you for saving me there. No, I haven't heard any of the new work. Have you?
I have.
And
Yeah. He just did a track with one of the more popular female like dance singers.
oh yeah,
And yep, and he uses a fake name for the track. Can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but he's not in the video. Instead, Sean Penn plays Sturgill Simpson in the video.
I see.
Yeah, it's worth looking at.
That reminds me of when Chevy Chase was in a music video with Paul Simon called You Can Call Me Al. And
Yeah.
it's Chevy Chase lip syncing as Paul Simon. So you're not seeing Paul Simon singing as Paul Simon.
No, he's just there goofing around with
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And at one point, I even think he picks up a bass in that
And
video.
the
But,
trumpet or the trombone, one of those two. No, anyway,
anyway,
I
um,
digress.
it is interesting about that Sturgeon stuff, and even more interesting about the Britney Spears stuff. Um,
Yeah,
um, anyway, that's my thoughts on all that. Do you have
yeah.
anything more to add?
No, I don't. I'm just I'm looking forward to our next installment of Under the Asylum.
As am I. But before we ride off into the sunset here, there is one more letter that came in via listener mail, which I think we
Oh,
should get around to, especially because this is a question directed at you, Rick.
okay.
And the question comes from Billy Thundercloud of Marshall, Minnesota. Hi,
Uh,
Billy. And Billy writes, it is illegal to bring mineral water into Nigeria, but what's the punishment if you get caught doing it? Hmm.
oh,
Good question, Billy. What do you think, Rick?
I really not allowed to talk about my experiences with mineral water in Nigeria. Um, it was a really
Says who?
what?
Says who?
I well, I was only in that region for a little bit, and I was asked to cut these conversations as short as possible.
Well, so
Uh,
you as an American were in Nigeria for a
oh
short.
no, I wasn't there as an American.
Oh no, were you there as a Canadian?
No, 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 no. Oh, no, no. I mean, I wasn't there representing America. I'm sorry. I didn't understand what you meant.
Okay, I meant as a traveler, being someone who has a passport from the United States. You travel to that part of the world, which is no.
Well, technically, I'm also probably almost an Italian citizen.
Does that mean you could almost have an Italian passport?
I could possibly,
Well, almost.
but that's neither here nor there. Mineral water into Nigeria. Well, it's not that they're afraid of what you might be bringing into the country, but they're afraid of what you might be bringing into the country hidden inside other things that you're bringing into the country. So, um, mineral spirits, for example.
Ah,
Yeah, and
bottled water that's really vodka.
it has spiritual properties, perhaps. That's really the problem. It's a
Oh,
lot of touchy, um, very superstitious people in the immigration and customs offices of Nigeria. And this is the part where the court order says I can't say anymore.
I see, and I understand. And well, very good. And on that note, folks out there in YouTube land, thank you very much for joining us here at Under the Asylum. And Rick, thank you for joining us.
Under the asylum.
Under. We'll see you next time, folks. Till then, you stay under.